The baby monitor crackled, then a whisper, not from the baby, but from someone else. Rachel froze mid-step on the staircase. It was past midnight. Her 3-month-old daughter, Ava, had been asleep for 2 hours. Her husband, Damon, was on a work trip in Chicago, and Rachel, she was alone, or at least she had been. She clutched the wooden banister so hard her knuckles whitened. The voice was low, hoarse, almost like someone trying not to wake the baby. But that wasn't the worst part. The whisper had said her name, Rachel. Her eyes darted to the baby monitor screen. The small grayscale image of Ava's crib glowed softly. The baby wasn't crying. She was sleeping, peacefully. No movement, no shadow, nothing unusual. Rachel backed away from the stairs, her heart pounding, breath shallow. It had to be interference. A neighbor's monitor, maybe. Some glitch. Still, she grabbed the baseball bat from the laundry room and tiptoed upstairs. The nursery door was closed, just like she'd left it. She stood outside listening, silence. She turned the knob slowly and pushed the door open. Nothing, just Ava, gently breathing, swaddled in a pink blanket with little yellow ducks. Rachel checked the closet, under the crib, behind the curtains. Nothing. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Damon FaceTimed her from his hotel. "You look pale," he said. "Are you sleeping at all?" "I'm fine," Rachel said, trying to smile. "Just weird dreams." She didn't tell him about the whisper. Not yet. He'd think she was losing it. And maybe she was. Truth was, she hadn't felt like herself in weeks. Since the emergency C-section, since the bleeding, since the NICU nurses had whispered outside her curtain, thinking she couldn't hear. Her baby almost didn't make it. And neither had Rachel. That night, she put Ava to sleep at 8 p.m. sharp. She turned on the baby monitor and left the volume low. Then she curled up on the couch with her laptop, trying to distract herself with mindless scrolling. Around 11, she dozed off. She woke up with a start, the monitor buzzing faintly beside her, then the whisper again. "Rachel." She sat up, cold sweat on her neck. The voice was clearer this time, male, deep, deliberate. Not electronic. Interference, not her imagination. She stared at the screen. This time, there was movement, a shadow in the upper corner of the frame. Not near the crib, not moving like a person. More like a drift, a presence. Gone in a blink, she bolted upstairs, flung open the nursery door and screamed. Ava wasn't in her crib, but before the scream fully left her mouth, she saw her. Ava was lying on the floor, face up, eyes wide, silent but unharmed. Rachel dropped to her knees and grabbed her daughter, checking every limb, every breath, every heartbeat. How had she fallen? The crib was high. There were no toys or pillows to climb on, and no way she could have crawled out. That night, Rachel didn't sleep at all. And by morning, something had shifted in her. She wasn't just scared anymore, she was angry. 2 days later, Damon returned. "I swear," Rachel said, showing him the baby monitor footage. "There's something wrong in this house." Damon studied the grainy video. "There's nothing there, Rach. Right there. See the corner?" He shook his head. "Looks like static. Maybe the monitor's glitching." She wanted to scream. Instead, she stared at him. Her husband, the man who had stood beside her through 2 miscarriages, the man who had cried with her when Ava was born prematurely, the man she used to trust. But now, there was distance in his eyes. Like he wasn't fully here anymore, and Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something she didn't. That night, while Damon showered, Rachel opened his laptop. She wasn't proud of it, but trust had already started to rot. She searched his emails, then messages, then folders. At first, nothing. Then she found a folder labeled Archives. Inside was a single video file, nursery cam 0521.mp4. The date was from 2 weeks ago, when Damon was still home. The day after Rachel had returned from the hospital. She clicked it. The footage showed Ava's crib. Normal. Then the door opened. Damon walked in. He didn't know the camera was recording. He wasn't carrying Ava. He was talking to someone off screen. A woman's voice responded. Soft. Familiar. "I can't stay long," the woman said. "She can't know you were here." Damon replied. Rachel's blood turned to ice. The woman stepped into frame. It was Eliza, Rachel's older sister, the one who had vanished 5 years ago after a massive falling out. The one who hadn't come to the wedding, the one who had blocked them both. Rachel slammed the laptop shut, hands trembling. She didn't sleep. In the morning, she confronted Damon. He denied everything. "What are you talking about?" "I saw the video." "What video?" "Eliza was here, in Ava's room. You said she was gone. You said you hadn't spoken in years." Damon paused. "She showed up after you went under for the C-section. I didn't plan it, she just appeared." Rachel's voice broke. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were barely alive, Rach. They almost lost you on the table. I didn't want to add more stress." She stared at him. "What did she want?" Damon looked down. "She said she wanted to see the baby just once." Rachel's eyes welled with tears. "She disappeared from my life for 5 years. And the moment I can't speak or move, you let her in." "I was scared," he whispered, "and she said something else." Rachel's breath caught. "What?" She said, she was protecting Ava, that something dark was tied to you, that if she didn't step in, it would come back. The words echoed in Rachel's ears all day. Something dark. Tied to her? She didn't believe in ghosts, not really, but her grandmother had. Her mother too. They'd always said their side of the family was cursed, that the women never stayed sane after childbirth, that each generation lost something. Rachel had dismissed it as superstition, until now, until Ava ended up on the floor, alone, until her missing sister reappeared in secret, until the baby monitor whispered her name. Later that night, Rachel stared at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her reflection felt off. Her eyes were sunken, her lips cracked, her skin pale almost. Not hers. She touched the glass, and the lights flickered. Behind her, the baby monitor, the portable one she kept in her robe pocket, buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a scream. She ran down the hall, bursted into Ava's room, but Ava was gone. Again. The crib was empty. No noise, no crying, no sign of a break-in. Rachel fell to her knees. Then she heard it, not through the monitor but from the wall, a faint sound. Like humming, lullaby coming from inside the closet. She stood, walked over, slowly opened the door. Nothing. Then, a creak from beneath her feet. She pulled back the rug. There, hidden under the floorboards, was a small square door, a crawl space, and etched into the wood, almost invisible, Eliza. Rachel stood frozen, staring at the trapdoor beneath the rug. Eliza, carved in jagged, uneven letters. How long had this been here? How many times had she walked over it without knowing? Ava was still missing. The soft humming hadn't stopped. It was faint, almost like it was coming through the walls or from under the floor. Rachel grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight, and pried open the small wooden door. The air that rose from below was cold. Too cold for spring. The space underneath was narrow and black, barely large enough for an adult to crawl through. The humming grew louder, and then a sound that shattered her chest. Ava's cry, muffled, terrified, real. Rachel didn't hesitate. She got down on her stomach, shoved the phone ahead of her, and slid in. The crawl space was damp, cobwebbed. The wooden beams pressed against her shoulders. Her heart pounded so loudly it echoed through the space. She dragged herself forward. 12 feet, 20. The air grew colder. She could barely breathe. Then the tunnel turned. She followed it. The walls narrowed, then suddenly widened into a tiny square room. The floor was dirt, the ceiling low. And there, in the corner, lay Ava, wrapped in her pink duck blanket. Crying but unharmed, Rachel scrambled forward, grabbed her daughter and held her to her chest. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." But her relief was short-lived. There was a photo taped to the far wall, an old photo. Rachel crawled closer, holding Ava tight, trying not to inhale the moldy scent of the underground room. The photo was of two girls, one older, one younger, sitting on a swing set in the backyard of their childhood home. It was Rachel and Eliza, when they were children. Written in red marker on the bottom, only one sister remembers. Rachel stared at it, shivering. Her ears were ringing now. She grabbed her phone to take a picture, but the battery had died. She turned to crawl back, but her way out was gone. The tunnel had collapsed. Rachel screamed. She clawed at the dirt, holding Ava, coughing from dust and panic. Then another sound, a rustle. She turned. At the back of the crawl space, behind where Ava had been lying, was another tunnel, longer, older, lined with cracked bricks. She had no choice. She adjusted Ava on her chest, whispered, "It's okay, baby, Mummy's here," and crawled in. The second tunnel felt like it would never end. Rachel's knees bled, her arms shook, and then light. She reached the end of the tunnel and pushed open a rotting wooden panel. It led into an old basement, one she'd never seen before, and as she stepped out holding Ava, she realized this basement wasn't under their house. It was under Eliza's old house, the one 3 blocks away, the one that had been abandoned for years. Rachel had grown up on this street. She recognized the wallpaper, even through the mold and peeling paint. This was real. She should have gone to the police. She should have called Damon, but something deeper was pulling her now, an old wound that had reopened. What happened between her and Eliza wasn't over. She climbed the basement stairs, still cradling Ava, and pushed open the door into the house. The air was stale, the living room empty. The furniture was gone, but the wallpaper was still the same sickly green it had always been. Then she saw the dining room table. One item sat in the center, a baby monitor, same model as hers, light on, powered, active. Rachel stared at it. It began to crackle, then a whisper. "Do you remember now?" "Rachel?" Her blood turned to ice. The voice wasn't Eliza's. It was a man's, a voice from years ago, a voice she hadn't heard since she was 11. She walked slowly to the living room window. The street was empty, still familiar, still terrifying. When she turned back, the basement door had closed behind her. She tried to open it, locked. She ran to the front door, also locked. Ava whimpered softly. Then the whisper again. "Come upstairs." Rachel's hands trembled as she stepped up the staircase. 1 floor, 2. The house had 3 stories. She followed the whisper to the top. There, at the end of the hallway, was Eliza's old room. The door was open. Inside, dim light, cold air. She stepped in. Everything was how it had been a decade ago. Posters, broken mirror, a cracked jewelry box, Eliza's diary on the nightstand. Rachel put Ava down gently on a pile of blankets, kissed her forehead, and picked up the diary. The cover was torn but legible. She flipped to the last page and read, "He comes at night. But only when Rachel is asleep. She never remembers, but I do, I always do." Rachel's hands shook. Her vision blurred. She turned to the next page. "I tried to tell Mom. She said I was lying. I tried to tell Rachel. She forgot. I tried to tell the school counselor. She disappeared." Then one final line scribbled in rushed handwriting. "One day she'll wake up. And when she does, I'll be gone. But she'll finally understand what I protected her from." Rachel dropped the diary. Her stomach twisted. Her mouth was dry. Something had happened to them, to her. And she'd buried it so deep, she no longer remembered. But Eliza had remembered everything. Rachel heard a thud downstairs. She scooped up Ava and crept back to the staircase. At the bottom stood a man, shadowed, still. He looked up at her, and suddenly, a flash of memory, the man from her childhood, her mother's second husband, Greg, dead 20 years now, but standing right there. He smiled, not kindly. Rachel stumbled backward, heart in her throat. She ran back to Eliza's room, slammed the door, locked it and backed away. Ava began to cry, and from the other side of the door, Greg's voice called softly, "You're just like your sister, always hiding. But I always find you." The lights flickered, the baby monitor buzzed, then silence. Rachel held Ava, shaking, rocking, whispering lullabies, and then the window burst open. A woman climbed through torn jacket. Bloody hand, wild eyes. It was Eliza, older, fierce, alive. "Come with me," Eliza gasped. "Now, before he gets in." Rachel didn't move. You were here this whole time." Eliza grabbed her hand. "No time, we have to go. Together." They climbed out the window onto the roof. Rain poured. The wind howled. Ava cried louder. Below them, the front door flew open. Greg stepped out, looking up at them, still smiling, still wrong. Eliza led them across the roof, down the fire escape, and into the alley behind the house. A car waited there, old but running. They jumped in. Eliza floored it. 10 minutes later, they were miles away. Rachel sat in the back seat. Ava clutched to her chest, her heart still racing. Eliza didn't speak. Finally, Rachel broke the silence. Was it real? That house, that tunnel, him? Eliza nodded. "You forgot. That's how you survived. But he's still here, the memory of him, the darkness he left behind." "I thought he died." "He did. But some things don't stay buried, especially when you never face them." Rachel closed her eyes. "I saw the diary," she whispered. Eliza didn't respond. She just kept driving. They arrived at a remote cabin in the woods, Eliza's safe house. She'd been living off the grid since leaving town years ago. That night, Rachel finally asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Back then, Eliza turned to her, eyes full of pain. "I tried, every night, but you'd wake up smiling, like nothing had ever happened. You blocked it out, like a self-defense instinct." Rachel looked down at Ava, now peacefully asleep. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Eliza reached out. "You didn't do anything wrong, but now we can't keep running. He's attached to the memory, to the fear. We have to end this." At dawn, Rachel woke with a jolt. Eliza was gone. Ava was still sleeping in her arms. On the table beside them was a note. "Don't follow me, I'll finish it. You stay safe. Tell her when she's older, tell her everything." Rachel stepped outside. Fog covered the trees. In the distance, she heard the faint sound of a voice. Her name, whispered once again. And then a gunshot, followed by silence. Rachel stood barefoot on the cabin porch, Ava asleep in her arms, staring into the mist-covered woods where the gunshot had come from. "Don't follow me," Eliza had written, but how could she not? She looked down at Ava, her tiny chest rising and falling against Rachel's shoulder. A storm was rolling in. Rachel took a deep breath, laid Ava gently back inside the cabin, surrounded her with pillows and covered her with the thickest blanket, and whispered, "Mommy will be right back, okay?" Then she took the flashlight, the carving knife, and Eliza's note, and walked into the woods. The fog was heavy, soundless. Every step Rachel took felt like walking through memory. Every tree seemed familiar, as if the forest was stitching itself. From her forgotten past, she kept thinking of that diary entry. She never remembers, but I do. Her boots sank into the mud. The cold bit at her hands. Then she saw it, a trail. Fresh footprints, dragging like someone injured. They led deeper into the woods, toward the abandoned part of town, the old mill where they used to ride bikes as kids, the place their mother had warned them never to go, the place Eliza had once said smelled like death. By the time Rachel reached the clearing, the rain had started. The old mill loomed in the distance, black, broken, its roof caved in. Something about it made her stomach twist. The footprints ended at the rotted front doors. She pushed them. Open inside, the scent of mildew and rust hit her like a wall. Eliza? Her voice echoed. Nothing. She moved deeper into the mill, past broken machines and twisted beams. Then she saw it. Blood, a smear along the wall, still wet, and beside it, Eliza's jacket. Rachel's pulse exploded. "Eliza!" she screamed. "No!" Answer, just the creak of old wood. Then, a low growl. Rachel spun around. There in the shadows was something watching her. A tall shape. Not quite man, not quite shadow. Eyes like headlights. Mouth like an open wound. It stepped closer, and Rachel's mind fractured. It was him, Greg, but not Greg. Bigger, twisted, wrong. A living memory of trauma, mutated and hungry. Rachel backed away, grabbing a rusted crowbar from the floor. The thing tilted its head. "You left her alone," it hissed. Rachel shook her head. "What are you?" "I'm what you forgot." It lunged. She swung the crowbar, metal on flesh. The thing howled, stumbled back, then vanished into the dark. Rachel ran. Through the broken hallway, up the back stairs, past a nest of rats and collapsing beams. She found Eliza on the 3rd floor, slumped against the wall, bleeding, breathing. Barely! "Eliza!" Rachel dropped to her knees. What happened? Eliza opened one eye. He's not just a memory anymore. You fed him, Rachel, every time you ignored what happened, every time you said it was just a dream. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know. I tried to protect you, but he grew anyway." In the silence, in the forgetting, Eliza winced. "You have to finish it. You, not me." Rachel shook her head. "No, we do it together." Eliza looked up, barely able to focus. "There's a room under the floor where he used to take us. You need to burn it, salt it. Say the name." "What name?" Eliza's eyes rolled back. Her breath slowed. Rachel grabbed her shoulders. "Eliza, tell me the name." But she didn't answer. A crash shook the mill. The creature was back. Rachel stood, gripping the crowbar, her blood boiling now. No more forgetting. No more hiding, no more letting Eliza carry this alone. She dragged Eliza behind a steel boiler for cover, then moved toward the sound. The creature stepped into the light, taller than before, arms dragging, skin like melted wax. And Rachel saw its face again. Her own eyes, her mother's mouth. It wasn't just Greg. It was everything that had ever hurt them, layered together in one monstrous form. "You're not real," she said. It laughed. "I'm the most real thing you've ever known." Rachel lured the creature to the main room, the one with the lowest floor, the driest timber. She needed fire, salt, words. She remembered an old superstition Eliza used to mutter in the dark. Name it, claim it, burn it down. Don't let the silence wear the crown. She ripped open old sacks of salt from the storage room, formed a circle, poured gasoline from a tipped-over canister she found near the back. The creature watched, amused. "You think that little rhyme will save you?" Rachel stood in the center, blood on her arms, ash on her face. She struck the match, and for the first time in her life, she spoke the name no one had said aloud since she was 11. Gregory Allen Dorsey. The creature screamed, the fire roared, the salt glowed white, and the room began to shake. Outside, the top of the mill exploded in flame. Birds scattered, smoke poured into the sky. Rachel stumbled out with Eliza over her shoulder, weak, dizzy, but alive. She didn't look back. The past was finally burning. Hours later, Rachel sat on the porch of the cabin again, Eliza inside, resting, Ava in her lap. The sun was rising. But her hands were still shaking, because even after everything, something still wasn't right. Ava hadn't cried once since they returned. She hadn't made a sound. Rachel leaned down, brushing her daughter's cheek. Cold, too cold. Ava, she lifted her. Ava's eyes opened, but they weren't her daughter's eyes anymore. They were Greg's, and then Ava whispered in his voice, "You didn't say goodbye." Rachel froze, Ava still in her arms, the eyes staring back at her. They weren't her babies. They were old, familiar, predatory. "Greg, you didn't say goodbye." Her fingers trembled around Ava's tiny body. "No," Rachel whispered. "No, no, no, you're gone. I burned you." But Ava's lips curled into a smirk that didn't belong to a child, not from her. Rachel backed away, her heel catching. On the porch step, she almost dropped Ava. Inside, Eliza groaned. She was waking up, weak but alive. Rachel forced herself to breathe. "Focus. This isn't real. It's trauma. It's grief. It's a trick." But the eyes, the voice, something was still inside Ava. And if she didn't act now, she might lose her forever. Rachel carried Ava inside, laid her gently on the couch. Eliza sat up, wincing in pain. "What happened?" Rachel couldn't speak at first. She just stared at her daughter, at the unnatural stillness, the silence, the wrongness. "Eliza," she whispered, "it's not over." Eliza's face fell. "Oh my God." "He followed us." Rachel nodded. "I don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "I did everything. I said the name, burned the room, salted the floor. I did everything right." Eliza reached over, took her hand. "You forgot the last part," she said softly. Rachel blinked. "What last part?" Eliza swallowed hard. "You never said goodbye, not for real, not to him, not to what he did, not to who you were back then." Rachel shook her head. "How does that matter?" "Because he lives in silence, in shame, in secrets." Eliza looked at Ava. "And now he's hiding in your daughter's innocence." Rachel's breath hitched. Eliza leaned in. "If you want to save her, you have to say it out loud. All of it. No more hiding. No more pretending it didn't happen." Rachel stood, shaking. "I can't." "You have to." The storm outside was gone. But inside, a different kind of storm was building. Rachel knelt beside Ava. Her little girl's body was still, too still, and yet her fingers twitched. Her lips moved silently. Her eyes stared at nothing. Rachel closed her own eyes and spoke. "When I was 10, I had a friend. He was older. He said he liked me because I was quiet, because I didn't cry." Eliza sat silently beside her, head bowed. Rachel's voice cracked, but she kept going. "He used to take me to the shed. He'd bring candy, say it was our secret. And he'd touch me, hurt me, tell me I was special, that I was his favorite." Tears spilled from her eyes. "I told myself it wasn't real, that I made it up. I hated myself for years. Thought I was broken, dirty. I thought I wasn't worth loving." She reached out, stroking Ava's tiny hand. "I let him live inside me all these years. In the way I doubt myself. In the way I freeze when someone gets too close. In the way I punish myself for being a mother." She leaned closer to Ava's ear, but not anymore. The air changed. Ava gasped at once, like surfacing from deep water. Then her body shook. Her eyes fluttered. Rachel whispered, "Gregory Allen Dorsey, you are not welcome here. Not in my house, not in my blood, not in my daughter." She pressed her forehead to Ava's. "I'm not your victim anymore." The wind knocked open the windows. A rush of cold air spun through the cabin. The lights flickered. Rachel stood firm. "I forgive the child I was. I let go of the fear, the shame, the silence. You don't own me, and you will never touch my daughter." A scream tore through the air. Not Ava's voice, but his. High-pitched, animal, rageful. Then, silence. The room stilled. Ava blinked, looked up at Rachel. "Mommy!" Rachel's knees gave out. She pulled Ava into her arms, sobbing, "I'm here, I'm right here." That night they buried the last box, old photos, torn notebooks, the diary. They didn't burn it, not this time. They buried it beneath the tree where their mother used to sit. It wasn't about erasing anymore, it was about honoring what they survived. Weeks passed. Ava began sleeping through. The night, again. Eliza started therapy, started smiling. Rachel enrolled in a survivors group. The healing wasn't perfect. There were still bad dreams, still days when her hands shook or her voice went quiet around strangers. But the silence was gone, and for the first time in decades, Rachel felt whole. One evening, Ava sat on Rachel's lap, coloring. "Mommy." "Yes, baby?" "Who was the man in my dream?" Rachel froze. Ava looked up with clear, curious eyes. "He said he used to know you, that you forgot him." Rachel took a deep breath. "What did you say to him?" Ava smiled, crayon in hand. "I told him he was old and boring, and I wanted my mommy." Rachel laughed through her tears. "Good answer." 1 year later, the cabin was sold. Rachel, Ava, and Eliza moved to the coast. Bright sunlight, fresh air, peace. Rachel started writing again, not stories, but truths. She shared what happened, spoke at shelters, helped other mothers find their voice. And one night after Ava had gone to bed and Eliza was making tea, Rachel stood outside on the porch. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Goodbye." Not with fear, not with pain, just peace. The end.